South Africa amended the Electricity Regulation Act going into 2025 to allow for the Electricity and Energy Minister to bring in the private sector on infrastructure projects. The country says to address economic bottlenecks and usher in growth, South Africa will have to ensure energy security that will come through the transmission development. The 10-year plan aims to construct 14,000 kilometers of transmission lines through public-private partnerships. The minister outlined the new transmission regulations that have now been opened for public participation for Phase 1 that will govern private sector participation in the construction of 1,160 kilometers of transmission lines in 3 provinces.
They established the rules with regards to the transmission system agreement, what will underpin the agreement between the buyer and the procurer, and then on the other side it talks around issues of revenue. How will the operator make their money? It's on capacity, availability and all of that. It says the parameters around the availability, the period of availability. We are setting that at 97%, and we also talk about the penalties if we are unable to meet those commitments.
The National Treasury has outlined a credit guarantee vehicle and timelines to raise funds that will help to provide guarantees to investors and de-risk the multi-billion rand transmission project.
So we're providing $100 million from a government perspective into this guarantee vehicle so that when we have the private sector who basically comes in, and if there's any risk of termination of the buyer basically cannot pay, they don't turn to government for ensuring that that payment is made or there's termination risk. So basically that will then be sorted out in a way through the credit guarantee vehicle. So that's where obviously the initial capital is going to be around about $500 million. As I said, 20% of that will be from National Treasury to the government of South Africa itself, and then obviously we look at other development partners as well.
A market study has revealed that 65% of local private entities have expressed interest in the plan. Eskom chairperson Mteto Nyati says this spells good news for roping in the private sector to help in energy security efforts.
The private sector is always willing to fund. They don't have issues and problems with regards to the availability of funds. They always have that. But their problem is, are they going to get the return? So what you need is to create an environment where the private sector can be able to say, if we put in the money, we will be able to get the return out of this. And the vehicle that we are talking about here, the credit guarantee vehicle, it helps de-risk. And it encourages the private sector to be able to put their money and help us to build these new transmission lines that our country desperately needs.
The first phase of the project will be implemented by the IPP office, with the Development Bank of Southern Africa identified as one of the entities to help in running the credit vehicle guarantees. DBSA's Mpho Mokwele says they will also assist to set up a transmission program office.
The one important thing that I thought, the minister mentioned, and which is what we are assisting on, is leveraging this transmission infrastructure program in order to unlock lots of jobs, reindustrialize, and as well as ensuring that we've got enough capacity in terms of contractors, supporting SMMEs in the space.
The minister has called on the public and landowners to support the project when it gets underway to avoid legal tussles and land expropriation efforts. What the industry can now expect is for a request for proposals to come out in the market later on in the year, with Minister Ramokgopa urging investors and financiers to rally behind the mega project. Work will also start by the National Treasury to de-risk transmission through the credit guarantee vehicle that is looking at least gunning for at least $500 billion to mitigate against risk to the rollout of this transmission project. Katla Gologodi, SABC News at the JSE in Johannesburg.